Hey everybody, it's Jason again here at the Children's Museum of Houston, the A-STEAM Programs Manager. And if you watched my previous video, you know we're talking about forensic science, and we're actually going to talk about the first activity right now. And since forensic science really started with the fingerprint, that's the first thing we're going to do. First thing you need to understand about fingerprinting. There are two types of fingerprints that we're going to talk about mainly. One is called an exemplar print, and one's called a latent print. Now, an exemplar print is something that many of you probably have taken before. It's a voluntary print. You start becoming a teacher, they take your fingerprints. They took my fingerprints in California when I became a science educator at certain museums. Every single museum. So it's a record of your fingerprints just to have in case something goes wrong in your life later on, or in case you need it to clear yourself of something that you might be accused of, okay? It's also a way when you go to different places, they can just put your fingerprint in and they know it's you. Because remember, all fingerprints are unique to the person. Now the other type of print that we're going to be talking about is called a latent print. A latent print is the type of print that a forensic scientist will take at a crime scene. It can be either an impressed print or it can be a hidden print. An impressed print would be like if someone put their finger accidentally, like say, in a stain of blood, or even like in candle wax or something like that. The forensic scientist will go in, see that print there and say, okay, let's go start to examine this print to see if we can find points of identification, okay? The more invisible type prints are the ones you see forensic scientists dusting for, using like graphite or other dusting techniques. Those are the ones, like there's a crime scene, they're like, okay, if this vase was stolen here, perhaps they put their hand here to balance themselves to get the vase, or they did something over here with the to balance themselves. So they'll start to dust for prints all over the place where the crime was committed. Now, we're going to go ahead and talk about fingerprints in a very much different way. We're going to do exemplar prints, and then we're going to show you how you can take a latent print, okay, in a very simplistic way. I wish we could do graphite and things like that, but it's very expensive, so we figured a different way out. All right? Now, before we start on the fingerprinting activity, let me go ahead and explain to you what we're going to be doing with this crime. Now, this is a crime scene packet that we've prepared for you. You're going to get this every single time you do an activity. The crime scene packet's first page just gives a little bit detail about the crime that was committed. In this case, the crime was committed at the Children's Museum in our Power Science Lab, where this group of people who were trying to get rid of science for kids decided to ransack and destroy our Power Science Lab. Now, not only do we have this sort of detailed history of the crime, we also have rap sheets of each person. A little bit of history of each person that we suspect might have committed this crime. Now, in this case, we're doing a little bit of an espionage spin to it. This is a group of people who have worked in the past before to try to like eliminate science from children's lives. So this is why we brought them together, because we figured out that they all worked for this organization before, but now they've all somehow started being employed here at the Children's Museum. So we pulled these people out to say, okay, we're going to take your fingerprints, we're going to look into what you've been doing to, first of all, eliminate you and make you innocent, or to figure out if one of you actually committed the crime, or if more of one of you committed the crime. Understand? So you want to look through these as well and think about their motivations possibly behind the crime, and whether or not any scientific evidence can be brought back to them because of what you know about them. So circumstantial evidence can help you make a case against someone, but you need the scientific evidence to help your cause even more, because it becomes a way in which innocence and guilty can be proven or not proven. Okay, what we have here is actual fingerprints from the 4 suspected suspects. They were good enough to give us exemplar prints because, you know, they started to work here and they needed to give us exemplar prints. Now, what's interesting is we found a print also at the Power Science Lab. This print up here is the latent print we found, the one that we dusted for in order to match it to one of these prints. So your job is going to see if this print matches any of these prints down here, okay? Suspect 1, 2, 3, and 4 in your crime scene packet actually has that written on there. Suspect 1 will be a certain person, suspect 2 will be a certain person, 3, 4, and so on. So your very first thing that you're going to want to try to do is match this fingerprint to one of these fingerprints down here. Now, we also have to do exemplar prints of each person in your classroom. That eliminates any suspicion from them. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna use this paper right here to take your own fingerprints. You're gonna take all of your fingerprints on your right hand and all of your fingerprints on your left hand. And I'm gonna show you how to do that in one moment. Okay guys, so here's how we're gonna take our exemplar prints. Basically, exemplar prints are just so that we don't contaminate any evidence that we have, that we can say that every single one of you forensic scientists had nothing to do with this crime. And it's just a way of also having a fun time comparing your fingerprints to other people and comparing your fingerprints to the suspects. Here's what you're gonna do. I've already done my right hand, so I'm gonna do my left hand right now. We're gonna go ahead and use an ink pad, and basically you're just gonna roll our fingers on the ink pad and then roll our fingers on to the paper. So you start with your thumb. So I'm gonna start with my left thumb, and then I just roll it on. Now, if you guys wanna have some fun, you can do each other's fingerprints. You can have one person roll it and take it like you see in police procedural shows and things like that. Next, I'm gonna do my index finger. We don't need a lot. I'm gonna do my middle finger. I'm gonna do my ring finger. I'm gonna do my pinky. I didn't get a lot of ink on my pinky that time, so I'm gonna try it again. Okay, and when you're done, you'll have your sets of fingerprints. Your right hand on the top, your left hand on the bottom. Then, we have magnifying glasses. You can take a really close look at it to see all the differences in your fingerprints. Your fingerprints, your friend's fingerprints, and the suspect's fingerprints. Now there's 3 different kinds of shapes that we look for in a fingerprint. We look for arches that look like an arch. We look for loops that kind of go around like that. And we look for whorls that kind of go up and around like that. Those are the kind of identifying marks that let a forensic scientist know that they have a unique set of fingerprints. But it's really, really hard to submit fingerprint evidence. Basically, a forensic scientist who does this type of work has to match the print that they find at the crime scene, the latent print, to the exemplar print with 16 points of identification. They have to be able to say like this to this, this to this, this to this, this to this, 16 times to even submit it as evidence. So it's not as easy as it looks to do fingerprints. Now, if you want, afterwards, you can do some fun thing with taking a latent print. Basically, you just put your finger back in the ink and go ahead and touch the cup. So your fingerprint's on there now. And then if you want to lift that fingerprint, we have some packing tape that you can see right here. You basically can take a little piece off. You can put it on to the latent print. And as you can see, you've lifted it. Pretty neat, huh? So now you can also practice lifting latent prints to use also for your evidence. All right, y'all, that's all for fingerprints. Hope you have fun. Make sure you do that identification part where you're looking at each other's prints and seeing differences and whatnot. And we'll get on to our next activities in a minute. Thanks a lot, guys.